never been one to believe in ghosts or monsters. You know the type, the skeptics who laugh at ghost hunting shows and roll their eyes at horror movie plots. That was me through and through. Until last winter. It all started with a postcard. I found it tucked into my mailbox one gray December morning. It was strange because I hadn't been expecting any mail, let alone something handwritten. The postcard was old, the edges frayed, and the image on the front was a faded photograph of a dense forest cloaked in mist. On the back, there were only 3 words: "Come find me." There was no return address, no name, just those 3 words scrawled in uneven black ink. I should have thrown it away. That's what any rational person would do, right? But something about it nagged at me. Maybe it was the eerie simplicity, or maybe it was the fact that the handwriting looked familiar, though I couldn't place it. The next day, I got another one. This time, it showed an old, decrepit cabin surrounded by towering trees. The caption underneath read, "Haven't you missed me?" My stomach twisted when I read it. I didn't know why, but the words felt personal. Like whoever sent this knew me in ways they shouldn't. By the 3rd postcard, I was hooked. The picture on this one was a path winding deep into a shadowy forest, barely lit by slivers of moonlight. The words on the back said, "The woods remember." I tried to brush it off as a prank, but deep down, I knew it wasn't. My dreams began to change after the postcards started arriving. Every night, I found myself walking through those same misty woods. The air in my dreams was cold and damp, filled with the sound of whispers I couldn't quite make out. And there was always a figure in the distance, half hidden behind the trees. No matter how fast I ran, I could never reach them. I told myself it was just my mind playing tricks. Stress, maybe. But then, on Christmas Eve, the 4th postcard arrived. This one was different. The image showed a clearing with a single massive tree in the center, its gnarled branches reaching out like skeletal arms. Beneath the tree was a small figure, barely discernible in the shadows. The words on the back read, "You're almost there." That night, the dream was different too. The figure wasn't hiding anymore. They were standing in the clearing beneath the tree, their back to me. I couldn't see their face, but I knew they were waiting for me. When I woke up, I made a decision. I had to find the place in the postcards. I don't know why. Maybe it was morbid curiosity, or maybe something was pulling me. Whatever it was, I couldn't shake the feeling that if I didn't go, the dreams would never stop. I spent hours online, searching for anything that matched the images. The forest, the cabin, the tree. It was maddening, but eventually I found it. There was a nature reserve about 3 hours away that looked eerily similar. The photos on the website weren't identical, but they were close enough. Close enough to convince me, anyway. I packed a bag, threw it in the trunk of my car, and drove out the next morning. The road leading to the reserve was narrow and winding, flanked by dense trees that blocked out most of the sunlight. By the time I reached the entrance, the sky was already an ominous shade of gray. The forest was silent when I stepped out of the car. Not the peaceful kind of silence you'd expect in nature. This was heavy, oppressive. No birds, no rustling leaves, just nothing. The path leading into the woods was almost identical to the one in the 3rd postcard. I should have turned back right then, but I didn't. I followed the trail deeper into the forest, my boots crunching against the frost-covered ground. The air grew colder the further I went, and the trees seemed to close in around me. I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being watched, though every time I looked over my shoulder, there was nothing there. After what felt like hours, I found the cabin. It looked just like the 2nd postcard, old, rotting, barely standing. The windows were shattered, and the door hung loosely on its hinges. Against my better judgment, I stepped inside. The interior was as dilapidated as the outside. Dust coated every surface, and the air was thick with the smell of mildew. There were symbols carved into the walls, strange ones I didn't recognize. In the center of the room was a table, and on the table was another postcard. This one didn't have a picture, just words scrawled in that same familiar handwriting. Under the tree, I knew what tree it meant. I'd seen it in the fourth postcard and in my dreams. Without thinking, I pocketed the card and left the cabin, heading further down the trail. The forest seemed darker now, the air heavier. The path eventually opened into a clearing, and there it was. The tree. It was even more massive in person, its twisted branches reaching impossibly high. Beneath it was a mound of disturbed earth, like something had been recently buried. My hands were trembling as I walked closer. There was something sticking out of the ground, barely visible beneath the dirt. I dropped to my knees and started digging. The cold soil bit at my fingers, but I didn't stop. Couldn't. Finally, I uncovered it. A box, old and wooden with a rusted latch. My heart was pounding as I opened it. Inside was another postcard. This one showed a photo of me, not a photo I'd ever taken or seen before. It was me standing in the very clearing where I now knelt, looking up at the tree. The words on the back read, "You found me." I didn't have time to process what was happening before I heard it. A low, guttural whisper that seemed to come from all around me. My breath caught in my throat as I looked up. The figure from my dreams was standing on the other side of the clearing, their face obscured by shadows. They stepped closer and I finally saw them. It was me, but not me. Their eyes were sunken, their skin pale and cracked, their mouth twisted into a grotesque grin. They raised a hand and pointed to the ground in front of me. The whispers grew louder, more insistent. I looked down and realized I was standing on another mound of disturbed earth. Panic set in as I scrambled back, but the ground beneath me gave way, and I fell. I don't remember hitting the bottom. When I woke up, I was back in my bed, clutching the final postcard. My hands were caked in dirt, and my nails were cracked and bleeding. I don't know how I got home, and I don't want to know. The dreams haven't stopped. Every night, I'm back in the forest, standing under that tree. And every night, the figure gets closer. I've stopped leaving my house. I've stopped answering the door. But the postcards keep coming. Last night, one arrived with a single word. Soon,